Hey guys, so with Poison SRS being pretty meta and very strong, I wanted to design some kind of cheap alternative to Poison SRS and make a map farming build with the Poison minions. And I think I succeeded at that. It's very cheap, it works pretty well, it's pretty chill, but it's not really suited for bigger bosses because this is using Bino's Kitchen Knife, Chains of Command. Bino's Kitchen Knife got buffed and I'm gonna talk about that in a moment. Chains of Command and using Qotra's Regulator Shield to kind of simulate Amanamu's Gaze. So this build is not using Amanamu's Gaze because it's like, what, 8-9 divines right now. I could add it and increase the DPS more, but I think the DPS is sufficient. I can farm tier 16 Guardians, I can do Cirrus, but I haven't tried any of the Ubers. I think Chains of Command in general is just not pleasant for like bigger bosses because the way you sustain it, it requires either you to defeat enemies or to use Writhing jars to summon those animate weapons. So the build is just for farming. The defenses of this build were a bit tricky because I am using Qotra's Regulator Shield and using Necromantic Aegis, so I don't really have block. I could get a bit of block and I could also use like a Bone Offering, but in the end I don't really have Recover Life on block, so I just decided to do something else to get the defenses, and it does work pretty well. And this is level 92. It is running with the Determination. I do have lower level Vitality, like level 14 Vitality for extra regen. I also got the Molten Shell on left click, and I do have pretty decent amount of armor, over 11,000 without any flask. So Molten Shell does work pretty well, and I do have quite a lot of duration, so Molten Shell also lasts for 7 seconds. And I am also using Val Molten Shell for extra defenses. It also has aspect of the spider, so slows enemies down a bit more. My minions also taunt enemies and blind them, although blind is not really very useful. And one cool thing about this build, Minion Defense Mastery, which says minions recover 5% of life on minion death. I'm not entirely 100% sure, but I think it also triggers, it counts minion death when you resummon the minion. And the animated weapons get resummoned pretty much constantly when playing this build because every kill is attributed to Animate Guardian because it's also wearing Grapevine gloves, and all of the kills within certain radius will be counted towards the Animate Guardian. So he's getting all the kills and summoning a bit stronger version of animate weapons. This is also Scion, and you kind of need Scion, I would say, if you're playing Chains of Command, because you want to use Writhing jars and you want to get the flash charges back like passively. And Scion Pathfinder allows you to do that. You don't really need plus levels to minion gems because the animated weapons from the Chains of Command are fixed level. We cannot get more levels. So you don't really need to worry about that, and you can only have animated weapons, which means you cannot even have skitterbots, but you can still have normal animate weapons, although I don't have enough sockets for that and I don't really want to. I just wanted a lazy build, so I only have Animate Guardian, which haven't died. I mean, I did try to juice up maps as much as possible and do like really scary mods and getting like the altars to increase the damage even more, but it was fine all the time. I am manually casting Convocation to summon the Animate Guardian out of danger if I see it, and during Cirrus Slam I believe I also all the time convocated in time. I'm not sure if it can tank Cirrus Slam, but it does have like 90 to maximum elemental resistances, so it shouldn't really die. It also has block, recover life on block, and like I said, every time animate weapon gets resummoned, it also gets 5% of its maximum HP restored, and that's like very often while mapping. On top of that, Bino's Kitchen Knife, the sad part is that it does not stack the regen. So Bino's Kitchen Knife got buffed, and basically the damage got buffed. The crit chance is actually, you do want a bit of crit chance if you're playing with the Qotra's Regulator, but you don't want too much, because each time your minions crit, they lose 11% of their energy shield, and well, in this case 11%. The minimum is 10 and the maximum is 15. They just lose up to 15% of their life on critical. So you don't really want to go crit, but once they crit and they have to crit, then for the next 8 seconds they get massive damage over time multiplier. And for minions there are only like 2 sources of damage over time multiplier, which is Amanamu's Gaze, which I believe gives 30% more, and this one which gives 60% more. So if you want to maximize, I guess, the minion poison DPS, you kind of would want Qotra's Regulator and Amanamu's Gaze. If you look at the PUB, this is like 8.3 million poison DPS without Amanamos gates, and like it doesn't really have anything expensive. I do have a really good large cluster jewel, but I crafted it myself at 5 effect and 2% attack and cast speed, and then all res, and that's 11 points. So that one is like free for divines. And other than that, of course, like ghastly eye jewels can be expensive, and for this you can get a bit like cheaper version and use chance to poison support and not go for the ghastly eyes that give you extra chance to poison. Like in the build I am using 2 jewels which give you need at least minimum 12% chance to poison if you use it in the darkness enthroned, because I was lacking 40% chance to poison 4 minutes, and these two in here is enough to reach 100%. That way I can replace the chance to poison support with something else that is more powerful, like awaken void manipulation. So yeah, the Bino's kitchen knife, sadly the life regen does not stack. You're only gonna get 200 life regen, and that's it, no matter how many enemies are dying nearby. So that's not really the main point. I'm not actually even sure why I did decide to use Bino's kitchen knife, because the poison proliferation, I don't think that is very strong when a single poison from Animate weapon is like, what is this, 35,000, and that's like with the conditional, because they also have Writhing touch, so it does require multiple hits before they gain that damage. So my Animate Guardian, by the way, that's how you access the Animate Guardian items. I'm not sure about the items that I gave. You could like replace a couple, like I gave Leper's Arm because it kind of removes the ailments. If it gets shocked and hits the enemy, it removes that shock from himself, or Chill, or Ignite, which Ignites could be really scary for Animate Guardian. So I think it's, if you're not using Purity of Elements, I think it's worth using this. You could get something else, but in this case there's not much else to use. You could use like Recover Life on block, but what if the Animate Guardian is not being hit but it's like ignited? Then it's not gonna survive. So being able to remove ignites, I would say, is pretty good for Animate Guardian. Ilfaband's Trickery, originally I wasn't sure if it's worth using it, and I'm not using it for the shock round. It does not trigger the shock round, but it does bypass the curse limit, and during the boss fight I did notice that the boss got many curses. So it will apply random curse on hit when it gets hit, and it will eventually apply like Temporal Chain and Feeble, maybe Punishment, so it may even increase the damage and lower the damage that monsters do. Grey Bind is just like a must. I gave these boots, I'm not sure if it's worth it. The Grasping Vines, I do notice that they work on enemies, so the enemies get slowed down a bit, and also the Animate Guardian takes reduced extra damage from criticals. And then I decided to try Spore Guard. Spore Guard, the explosions don't really happen that much. I tried the rare body armor with exploding mode, and it does work better for clearing and in general, but this, when it is stationary, it creates the fungal ground, and I believe while enemies are on the fungal ground they also do 10% less damage, so that also works defensively for me, and it's not an expensive item either. And for Animate weapon, obviously you just give Bino's kitchen knife, but you do need to, like each time you switch the sets, do need to go back to the Animate Guardian's weapon, select the Animate weapon, and then in order to see the DPS again, you have to go in here and then reselect full DPS and then select 14 weapons. Now, one big drawback for this build, Sanctum. Sanctum actually feels pretty bad with this. Minions die often, since there aren't that many enemies to get kills from. I very often don't notice that my minions are dead and need to be resummoned, and I have to not spam the Worm Flask. You want to use them in sequence, and you don't want to just spam them all at the same time, because there is a cooldown how fast weapons can be summoned from this. They have inbuilt splash, essentially. If they hit and kill all the worms at the same time, you're only gonna summon one Animate weapon. So you want to use it like in sequence. As you can see, it is getting multiple per use. So there you go, and now you have flying Bino's kitchen knives everywhere. On the other hand, a cool thing about Chains of Common is that it's essentially like an 8-link or 8-socket item, because you don't need to place a skill gem inside it, and you don't need to place melee splash. It already has inbuilt melee splash, so you just add 6 damage support gems. I am using Awaken Added Years level 5 because it's cheap. Awaken Void Manipulation, you can just use 20-20 normal Void Manipulation. Unbound Ailments to make poison last longer. Multi-strike, speed. Predator support is kind of a must. in order to be able to focus the enemies as always. And Withering Touch, so that they automatically applies Wither, you don't need to worry about using Wither. I am using United in Dreams. I tried using the non-upgraded version, and the non-upgraded version may keep your Animate Guardian alive even better as long as there are enemies dying. But in the end, this weapon effect looks so cool. I love this weapon effect so much. I may actually even take this and use it on other one-handed weapons if possible as a reskin, because the weapon effect just looks so cool. And it does give level 25 envy, which you can get on Amulet, but it will be on Amulet like level 15, I believe. And envy does give you and nearby allies get an extra flat additional heals damage with attacks and spells. I am using Devouring Diadem just to squeeze in more auras. Like I said, I'm using Determination, Envy. I did craft Aspect of the Spider on the Amulet, because on the Amulet I really did not need anything special, just needed a lot of lightning resistance. And then I did squeeze in at the end lower level vitality, it's like level 14 vitality, just to get a bit more life regen, because I don't really have life sustain. I am also using Divine Blessing with Malevolence, so I got Generosity, Divine Blessing and Malevolence in the helmet. I also using Arcane Brand with the Desecrate and Flesh Offering. I only pretty much use it against the bosses. I don't use it for map clear. That's actually why I'm using Silver Flask on auto, so that I can just like move faster. Without it, it feels kind of slow. Now the Animate Guardian is Divergent. You either get level 2120 normal or Divergent 2020 is much cheaper, because Divergent 2120 is multiple exalts, like 10 times the price, and Divergent just gives increased minimum maximum life, so 40% is pretty big, and it is linked to Anomalous Control Destruction. This is the first thing that you need to do. You want your Animate Guardian to be unable to crit, because if it crits, it loses life, and you don't want that. So you can either use Anomalous Control Destruction or give Animate Guardian. You can give this helmet to Animate Guardian. Never deal critical strikes, and have Battle Mage. Nearby enemies cannot deal critical strikes. That is also useful. So if you want more defenses, you can also give this to Animate Guardian instead of Anomalous Control Destruction, and then instead of this use something else like Elemental Army or Minion Life. I am also using Feeding Frenzy to Animate Guardian and Meat Shield. They cancel each other, so it still behaves like normally. But I need Feeding Frenzy somewhere, and since I cannot use any other minions, this is the only place where I can use them. Right, I also like using the Spear with the Hex Bloom. It feels pretty satisfying seeing the creatures just kind of proliferate. And lastly, I'm using Val Molten Shell. You don't really need Val Molten Shell, and instead you could even use Val Haste. I'm also getting 100% chance to avoid being shocked on pretty much just boots and my relic. If you don't have the relic, you spend 1 point here, pick up this mastery, an extra 20% chance to avoid elemental ailments while holding a shield. You are still holding a shield, it's just you have no stats from your shield. So these nodes still work and give elemental resistances. The alternative to that is like refund these 4 points if you don't need block at all and go through here. That's 5 points. But then you can have an extra jewel. I am running 3 Writhing jars. I didn't even bother getting well rolled ones with the reduced charges used, just picked up what I had. But you kind of want 3 of them. You can get away with 2. 1 would be a bit annoying, but for general mapping you don't need that many. Like you can just get a couple of minions, start mapping, and then immediately it's gonna ramp up and get to 14 minions. So you could get away with just 1 for general mapping, and then maybe use some defensive flask. The passive skill tree, I decided to not refund these skill effect duration. Like while mapping, you don't really need skill effect duration for your minions because we constantly keep getting resummoned, recreated, but I find it pretty useful to have longer duration Malevolence with Blessing and then the Molten Shell, and during some annoying boss phases the weapons also last longer, so it's pretty nice. You do want Blessed Rebirth, and the second thing can be pretty much anything, but I did want to make my Animate Guardian a bit tankier, so I did pick up the Dread March, Blessed Rebirth and Dread March, and on the small cluster Enduring Composure just for myself to be tanker, so I also get Endurance charges as well. Now minion accuracy is actually a bit of a problem, not really a problem, but you're gonna have to get minion accuracy. So I got a jewel with minion accuracy, but you're also gonna probably need to take these 2 nodes for extra minion accuracy and the mastery for extra flat accuracy. For some reason those animate weapons have like really low accuracy, at least in PoB. The anointment I went with the life for myself because only 5.5k HP at level 92, But then again, I still got like these life nodes that I can take. I have another idea for how to rework this build into something experimental, which I did briefly try in the last league. Minion instability chains of command. Also with the Qotra shield, I believe, and the helmet that makes minions hear whispers. And then I believe it was Marvel's Embrace belt, which means each time an animate weapon gets summoned, they auto use these worm flasks, and then they have more targets to kill. Once they get those worms killed, they re-summon themselves, re-triggering the flask. But you do need quite a lot of flash sustain to have that kind of infinite loop, and I think it is possible, and the damage could also be pretty good. I'll have to see if that's worth doing or not sometime later, because I already started the next build, the next build is gonna be using Azira's Disfavor yet again, but it's gonna be Chieftain Ice Crash with Heat Shiver and Big AoE, a kind of double slam actually. That's it for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.